Hey, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mother Daze. I'm Teresa Palmer.
And I am Sarah Wright Olsen.
And she's dancing, guys. She's dancing
I'm dancing.
by the mic.
I'm dancing. I'm excited.
In her Airstream.
I'm sitting in the Airstream. It's dark outside. We have to record on such weird time zones. Teresa's like, okay, these are the hours that I have available. And I'm like, okay. And for all you moms out there, it is what if you're going to ask, like, what's the worst time of day that you have to do anything? The worst time of day is between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m.
And I'm like, hey, so I'd be perfect for about 4 to 8.
No, but really, like, if you think about Australia time, because you guys are like 17 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
Your morning is like our 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock or whatever.
I know.
And then it's like, if I go beyond 8 o'clock, then it's pitch black outside. If my baby wakes up, I'm not going to hear her because I'm going to be outside in the Airstream. And Eric has to work at, 5 a.m. So it's just a funny thing, but that's what we're doing. This is how we are recording the podcast. We're making it work. I love it.
I've had so many sick children. I've had, Sarah knows this, every single day I'm messaging being like, yep, still sick. And I think because there's 4 of them, it's like the bug just jumps from one to the next and then goes back around again. The same cycle, just over and over and over. And then we maybe get 5 days of someone without a snotty nose. It got so bad last week that I know as mummy that the kids are okay. I can tell. You know that feeling when they have a fever and when it gets to the point where it's like, oof, this is feeling a little dicey. Totally. But I know what to do. You know what to do when our kids have fevers. It's a natural part of them fighting whatever it is they're fighting. So my baby has had these kind of relentless bugs, I would say, over the last 3 weeks. So she'll have a fever for 2, 3, 4 days straight where she's sort of almost breaking it, getting better again, and then she has another fever. So the other day I'm at work and I just so happened to mention to the medic, he's a new medic. We've never worked with him before. And I was like, yeah, oh my God, my baby's just been having these relentless fevers. And here she is, like she's here with me at work. And he was like, oh, let me just check her out. I was like, all right, if you want to. He checks her out. Cuts to, I'm like down doing my scene where I'm scream crying. I'm so emotional. I'm on this houseboat. I'm like, ah, like I found out this horrible piece of information. And I come back up and there is all the powers that be at on a TV show. Like the line producer, all the big producers, the writer, the showrunner, the director, the medic, the nurse, that everyone's having this little powwow. And I'm like, hey, you guys, what's up? And they're like, your baby, the medic's like, your baby needs to go to hospital. And I was like, what?
Oh my
I swear she's okay. I know she's okay. Like, why? What's changed from when I went to do this emotional scene and came back? He's like, I can hear a rattling in her chest. There's sort of a rattle. And I was like, isn't that kind of normal with a cold? And he was like, I just don't feel comfortable. We are 4 hours away from a hospital. What if something goes bad? You should drive down now to the hospital. And I was like, what? Like, I really feel like she's okay. But then obviously I have all these people saying this is an emergency, this has to happen. And so I start internally panicking and trying to just figure out the logistics. So it's just like one of these situations where I'm completely panicked.
That's so stressful.
I know. And I'm at work but obviously I'm so worried about the baby.
Of course.
So I was like, all right, I'll finish the scene. I'll meet the baby there. My husband's like, please don't let anyone you should be the one, just like you can wait and take her on wrap.
Where's your husband? He's not in
overseas in America. So it's just me and my sweet nanny, poor Maisie. She's 21. She's like, she doesn't drive. So the line producer's driving her to the hospital. I'm panicked. I wrap and then start driving the 4 hours to get to the hospital. And I'm getting updates. So they've got to the hospital and Maisie's like, it's not a big deal. Like, she's totally fine. They're just going to send us home. But, obviously still get here. So obviously I'm feeling relief. But I was just like energetically feeling really off. Like, what is happening right now? This just took this wild turn. And I swear to God, my mama instincts was that she's fine. She's fine. So we're driving and all of a sudden I'm in the car with this
I'm
runner.
already giggling. I know this story.
Like full panic, heart racing, and I see up ahead these lights in the middle of this pitch black road. We are in bumfuck nowhere, like literally the middle of the sticks, nowhere.
Oh my God.
And I see like in the distance these like flashing lights. I'm like, what's going on? Is there a car accident? We pull up and it's like everything goes slow motion and the headlights like go past these cows, which
my first instinct would be like, is there an accident? Is it my baby in the car?
I know. I was like, what is going on? It must be ambulance. That there's something happening. It is a semi-trailer has jackknifed in the middle of this crazy road.
Oh my God.
It's just this one long highway and there's no other cars, but there are all these cows in the middle of the road. And so the headlights like in slow motion are just shining from one cow to the next and they've all got these big eyes, but they're all injured. So this tractor, trailer, semi-trailer, whatever has plowed into cows that happen to be standing in the middle of the road. And there are like dead ones. There are lumps of different cows in different directions. There's this one cow that we drove past. So it's horrible. We drove past so slowly and it's just staring at me and it has a little bit of blood in its mouth. And Ben, the assistant, he's a PA and a runner on set. Like he knows his job is I've got to get this actress to the hospital to see her baby. Yeah. And he's like, oh, don't look. It's a little bit disturbing. And I was like, stop the car, Ben. Stop the car. Pull it over to the side of the road. He was like, no, please. I would get into trouble. I really just have to drive you to the hospital. I was like, no, wait, please. Let me get out. I need to go see if I can help. So I get out of the car. I run up to the cop and I'm like, hello, hi. And I'm wearing this outfit from work. And he was like, are you the farmer? Are you the owner of these cows? And I was like, I know I look like the farmer. I'm not, but I am a vegan. I am an animal lover. I need to go and hug these cows.
Stop
and I was
it.
like, what? And he was like, if you want to, you can. I was like, thank you so much. Please, I just want them to know love before they die. And so I ran over in the pitch black to this one cow that was just sitting there. And it was so stunned. And hopefully it wasn't one of the ones that ended up dying, although they all had tags in their ears. And I'm like, look, at some point these cows were on their way to the slaughterhouse. So the vegan part of me, my heart was breaking. And I just saw this poor, beautiful creature who needed love. And I hugged it and I stroked its neck. And then I could see the vet. There already was a vet there like putting to sleep some of the other cows. And like he was walking over and I was like, oh my gosh, this might be its last moments on earth. And I just wanted to know love. And I was like, I love you. I was like crying. You're okay. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm just so sorry. And then the vet came over. So I waved. I said goodbye. I sent my love. I got back in the car. You're like, so funny.
Okay, I'm covered in cow's blood. Let's go see my baby.
Let's go to the hospital. Let's get to the hospital. And Ben was so funny. He was just stunned, silent. He was like, are we good to go? Should we keep it? I was like,
he's like, do I? He's like, maybe I don't tell anyone what I just saw. He's like,
should I radio in and say what just happened? And I'm like, thank you so much for letting me love the cows.
Oh my
God. And then
God.
we drove straight to the hospital. I got to the hospital and sure enough, baby was fine. And the doctor she was a mum as well. She was like, I am so sorry that you had to drive 4 hours, hang out with half dead cows on the side of the road and come to the hospital at 1 a.m. I'm so sorry.
So
Bobby
what did they
fine.
think it was? Just like an upper respiratory or
because
like,
of COVID. Yeah. She actually said that all of the kids that she's seeing in there are getting these crazy bugs which are affecting them so much more because the immune systems aren't nearly as strong because we haven't been seeing people as much. So this doctor was like, look, we are seeing fevers that are lasting 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And obviously in normal times that would be like, whoa, that seems a little bit
Well, no, that would be
Yeah.
a pretty big deal. I mean, I think like a
Yeah.
fever that goes beyond 4 days, 5 days is you're kind of like, well, I guess at a certain temperature is pretty, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe we should see what else is going on. Like the body should have burnt this out by now.
She said, look, you're not the first person to come in here with a baby that's just having these relentless fevers because they just have not been exposed to as many bugs. So when they do
Yeah.
get the bug, it lasts a lot longer and it's so much harder for them to kick it.
Mm.
So at least I had validation because I was like, right, I knew she was okay and we were getting through it with, I would give her fever reliever at nighttime. I would nurse throughout the night. I knew what to do. I would strip her down to her nappy. All of those things. She was like, just continue doing that. Keep her hydrated. And sure enough, a few days later, she got better. But she's like, this is not abnormal. This is what we're seeing. This is the world we're in right now.
So, universe, what does that mean? Like, Teresa went on a 4-hour journey. She stopped to love on some cows, and
I was like, what is up with that? And I think
yeah,
I have this weird, I mean, we're going to get into spooky season in October. Sarah and I are
yes, I'm
diving
so
deep,
excited about that.
diving
Woohoo.
deep into all things spooky and creepy.
Hopefully, you guys saw our stories that we put up,
Yes.
asking for your spooky stories.
Your spooky stories, because we know you have them and you will share them
Yes.
with us. And
Yes.
Sarah will get creeped out and Teresa will get excited by the spooky stories.
Exactly.
But I was going to say that energetically, I think that I'm doing a show. It's about a cult. It's very heavy. It's every single day I am having to dip into this low vibrational headspace to portray this character.
Yeah.
And I think that some of that energy is really rubbing off on me. And it was just a weird week.
Yeah.
So I actually, a couple of days ago, just decided I'm going to sort of make peace with this and this character and try and rid this energy from me and stop carrying it on me. Usually I'm really good at leaving work at home, but because it's also a true story, so I can't help but think about it a lot. I just had to put some separation in place and
some
things
boundaries.
are slowly getting better. Putting out my emotional boundaries.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard to do too, because you're also like, oh, if I tap out for a minute, am I going to lose some of it? Like, am I going to lose some of how far I've gone into this character? But no, you're not going to.
Do you do that when you're working? Do you get so immersed in the character that you feel like you need to stay in it, or are you able to switch off?
I'm able to switch on and off. I'm like, usually it's usually for me, it's that I'm only doing a few scenes that way. It's not like an entire season of something that's that heavy, So when I shot the show in Toronto, the Spitting Out show, I had to go into some harder episodes where I was talking about pregnancy loss and stuff like that, and had a couple of crazy moments on the show, and those were a few hard days, but it wasn't an entire season of hard days to tap into. So I felt okay, at the end of that day, I was so depleted, but then I was able to go to bed and then get up the next day and I'm like, okay. Yeah. And now I'm back to the fun character again. So it's a very different thing. That story was so great. It's so funny. Just the cow part really gets me, and the fact that the guy thought that you were the farmer is maybe my favorite takeaway.
I had gumboots on and I had this big oversized green jacket and I looked like a farmer. I was like, I wish they were my cows. If they were my cows, they wouldn't have been out on the road. They would have been in my house, snuggling with me in bed.
That's so true. Oh my God, you would totally be that person.
Me and Nikki Reed.
Yeah, you and Nikki, exactly. I actually had a friend who built this red barn in her backyard, and then she had chickens, and she had goats, and then she had a couple of sheep, and then they started living inside the house, and then she would send me pictures of the sheep next to her bed, and I was like, wait, did the animals live in the barn or in your house? She's like,
where do they
oh my God, they're so amazing. Have you ever had sheep before because they just kind of follow you everywhere. And she's like, you can just walk with them and they'll go on walks with you. And I was like, wait, what? No, I don't know this. Tell me everything.
I am so traumatized from the
Ugh.
smell of my house growing up because my dogs used to take shits and stockpile them under the bed. They'd like go into the master bed and just like take shits. And so the smell in my house growing up
The
was
worst.
so foul that now I'm really sensitive to smells. The idea of having sheep walking, I'd be like, I can't live here. This smells. I cannot
crazy.
deal.
Yeah.
Even I like incessantly wash my dogs because even the smell of dog, I'm like, I'm being traumatized.
You're like, I can't have that.
I can't.
Should we talk about our guest that we have today?
She is the best.
Okay.
This is a girl crush of mine. And I messaged Sarah and I was like, oh my goodness, we've got to get Taryn on the show. She's so brilliant. And I always say she is, you know, when people die and everyone's like, oh, that person's just a ray of light. They walk into the room and they light up the room. Every single person who dies gets someone describes them that way. But Taryn is the real deal. She actually is that way. Like she is the person that walks in. Everyone looks at her and is like, who is that? Like bright ball of love and energy.
Yeah.
And it's Taryn. She's really special. She's got a beautiful personality and she's a warrior for body positivity. So she has this new documentary coming out called Embrace Kids. And I watched it with the kids and oh my goodness, the impact that it had on Bodhi, in particular being 8, was so special. And I think he's folding in some of the things that he learned and taking it to school where he's got this little friend who's being bullied slightly. And Bodhi is just being an advocate for that boy and really sticking up for him. And I know that he's been so moved by this documentary. So you can watch it with your kids. And I think you're going to love this interview. She's amazing.
We had to record the intro to this interview after the fact because we had a few different technical issues. And then we tried to record it after we actually interviewed her. And then we had like 14 children present and we couldn't hear anything.
More technical difficulties.
And more technical issues. So
we are cursed, Sarah.
We're a little bit. But guys, bear with us. I mean,
Maybe it's the energy I'm bringing from my work.
No, it's so great. But it's fun because this episode is, I think, going to be really, I think really important for us to take this information and, share it with our children. And we're so excited for you guys to listen. Also, I just have to put this in here really quickly. We've been reading all of your comments and your feedback about the podcast so far, and we're blown away. We're so excited. We cannot wait to bring you all the things that we have in store. So just thank you to everybody who's rated, reviewed, who shared, who has listened. This has been such a wonderful experience so far, and we're only getting started. So I'm really excited to bring you Taryn today, so we'll go to that part of the episode now.
We are so excited today to be interviewing our amazing guest, Taryn Brumfitt from the Embrace Body Positivity movement. She's such an inspiration. I know, Sarah, I've talked to you so much about Taryn.
Yes.
And I've been wanting to get her on the podcast for a while, and now is the perfect time because she has such a beautiful and inspiring new documentary coming out called Embrace Kids, which is focused on just having kids love and embrace their bodies. And I cried from about minute 8 all the way through until the end. Just these waves of tears and emotion and sobs and all the different stories were so uplifting and beautiful. And Taryn, you're just amazing. Thank you for being the champion of this work because it is such important work. So let's start from the beginning, I think.
For sure.
10 years ago, you decided to post a before and after picture. Now, you just did this on your personal Facebook page, and it was an untraditional before and after. You sort of did it in reverse, and I loved it. And it had such a massive global moment. It was a viral photo. I think people all over the world. Didn't Ashton Kutcher tweet about it? He said, this is good for the world. Did you expect any of that?
No, and I use that quote from Ashton Kutcher in everything I can still. IMDb, LinkedIn, just in conversations with people at the supermarket. Listen, Ashton Kutcher said, listen, I didn't expect any of this to happen. It was kind of very accidental, if you like. You know how you normally see before and after photographs? There's a person before, they're in a larger body, they're deeply unhappy, they lose weight, and miraculously, they're happy. And I just wanted to call BS on that, because weight loss doesn't equal happiness. And I also wanted people to consider that health isn't just physical, it's mental, spiritual, emotional. And yeah, so I was a photographer. I had my 3 young children. I'd never done any media interviews. And I posted these photographs of me in a bodybuilding competition. I did bodybuilding for 15 weeks because I hated my body so much. And my trainer said to me, and I decided to not have surgery to fix it, as I said to her. And she said, train to get this body. And I got it. But it made me so unhappy because I had to eat so much chicken and broccoli, and I had to punish my body to make it look like that stereotypical bikini body. So that was my before, and my after was as I am now, in a larger body with my cellulite, with my stretch marks, and it just broke people's brains all over the world. That a woman could love their body in the after. They're like, what's with this? This is all mixed up. And look, it's just been 10 years now since, that all kind of happened, and it's been, I used to call it a journey, now I'm calling it a ride. We've done so much, and it's such a great honor to lead this global movement of positive change, because it's one we need in the world, because we weren't born hating our bodies.
It's so true. I didn't even think about my body as a kid. I was just like, woo, I can run, I can play handball, I'm good at netball. Like, I just didn't ever think, how does my body look? I do remember, though, when it first happened, I was probably 15, and it's such a different culture now. Obviously, we've got social media, kids are online, a lot younger. But at the time, we didn't have any of that. So I was 15, and the year 10 boys did a competition, who was the hottest girl in year 10. And everyone sort of knew what their ranking was. And I remember thinking, I didn't make the top 5. Well, it's probably because, maybe because my belly's not quite as flat as Leah's, or, my belly button ring's a little bit wonky. I remember this narrative beginning, the seeds planted at that age. And I went for I think a couple of years, 15 to 17, of just not having a lot of self-love. And I really believe, when I go back, that was the trigger for me. I just looked at myself in a different lens and tried on all these different hats, trying to shape shift and be cool and fit into the popular group, and really stepped away from who I authentically was. But luckily, when I hit year 12, I kind of found my stride again, and really cultivated self-love and acceptance. But yeah, it's a funny thing, because we're dealing with just a whole different beast now, I think, with social media and the trends that we're seeing. And your documentary that I've watched now twice, this new one, Embrace Kids, it really focuses on that, and all the filtered faces that we see on social media, and the bullying, and the way you presented it and folded in the children to hear it from their perspective in the doco was so moving, and such an interesting way of telling the story. Could you just break that down a little bit? Why did you choose to do it from their perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the why behind Embrace Kids was my first film, Embrace, which we released in 2016. That was the one, Tez, that you watched on the way to the Oscars. It made you cry. You reached out to me, and we've been friends since, which is pretty cool. I love that story. But after sharing that film with millions of people in over 190 countries, the number one piece of feedback that I received was, I wish I had seen this when I was younger. And I was spending a lot of time in schools with 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds with the first film, and it felt like I was getting to them too late, because some of them had hated their body for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So I knew that we needed to get in early to the 8 to 14 range. We know that kids at the age of around 7 start comparing themselves to others, and they want to do that whole fitting in thing. We're naturally wired as human beings to compare, but it's really hard for kids in this day and age with social media, because what they're seeing isn't real most of the time. And there is, it used to be photoshopping, and now it's the filters, and now it's the influencers who are sort of, I guess, posing a life which isn't always real. And one of my favorite quotes is by a man called Steve Furtick, and he says, "Don't compare your behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel." And I think we can all take that on and just think, yeah, because most people I know, especially my friends, we're all messy as. And I think when we share our stories, it makes us feel a level of comfort that we don't all have it going on. But for our kids, they are under so much pressure. We know as adults how hard it is to live in a world that tells us to be anything other than what we are. But imagine trying to navigate your teenage years with all these influences coming at you. So we wanted to film that was going to have a really broad impact. And the best way to do that is to get kids to tell and share some of their stories. And I think the most surprising thing about this film was when I set out to make it, it was, we're going to talk about body image. And then it kind of just branched out to gender stereotyping, diversity, inclusion, disability. We covered a lot. And it's important because they all kind of work, hand in hand with one another. They're all related in a way. But the kids in the film, how awesome are they? I mean, I was not like that at their age. They're so articulate. Enzo.
Oh my gosh. He's so, I know. I'm going to start following him on YouTube now because he is just the best. It was amazing. I saw your movie. I watched it today. It was incredible. It totally made me cry. But it's funny because I was texting Teresa and I was sending her these pictures of myself as a kid. And these pictures of myself were like big, Coke bottle glasses, like, hair that was like flipped out and feathered, and I wore like the craziest colors, and everything was very bold, and Minnie Mouse necklaces, and just like I definitely had this vibe when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, where I just was my own. I had my own thing, my own style, my own everything. But then I do remember, and I think it's exactly what you're saying, Tez, is that moment when somebody comments on your body for the first time and you've never thought about it. I had never thought about like what my body looked like compared to another person's body. And then at some age, someone called me chicken legs as I was like walking down the hall. And I was wearing these really tight pants and a big sweatshirt with a big smiley face I bought at Walmart on it. And I was so proud because it was brand new and I loved it. And then someone called me chicken legs and I felt so insecure in that moment. And then I was like, wait, what? Like, do I have chicken legs? And what does that even mean? And then that was the first time it made me look in the mirror at myself. And now, this day and age, with what kids are seeing through your film, it was so beautifully laid out. But kids are seeing something that just doesn't even exist. Like seeing other kids with tons of makeup, with all these filters, like
curated versions of who they are. Yeah, it's wild. And you tapped into that a little bit with your first documentary, Embrace, which was when you set out to make that. Was that specifically for women or was it for anyone? I think, we talk a lot about it being a woman's issue, body positivity and wanting to embrace our bodies, but I see it in men so often.
Yes.
And when I first watched a documentary when I was, as Taryn was saying, I was flying from Sydney to LA. I was heading to the Oscars and I just had a baby, my second baby. And I was carrying a little bit of extra weight. I had these big, milky, glorious boobies. And I watched this documentary. I bawled my eyes out for the whole flight. I watched it and then I just kept remembering moments throughout the doco that really touched me. And I realized I was unpacking my own trauma that I experienced when I first came to Hollywood, and I was 20 years old, and there was this paparazzi photo of me on the beach with Adam Sandler when I was shooting Bedtime Stories, and my female agent at the time said, it's just a part of your job. Like maybe you could just work out a little bit, tone up. And I was like, tone up? What? Like, what do you mean? I think I'm pretty skinny. Am I not? What do you mean? Like, I don't have a six pack. Is that an issue? And she was like, it's just a part of your job. Like, it's just, and so I remember going to the gym incessantly. I would go 6 days a week. I ended up having such a terrible disordered eating.
I
fell
became
into
friends with you around this time.
Oh, yeah. And do you remember I would go to a restaurant and I'd be like, hey, could I have everything except for basically everything and just steamed vegetables on the side? And
yeah, no, I remember.
And people would bring that out, the ingredients list out for me. And I'd be like, too much oil in that one.
No, not that one. Yeah, I remember you'd be like, not one grain of rice. Not one grain of rice can be.
No rice.
The plate.
No rice.
Yes.
No oils. Nothing fried. No, I mean, it was unbelievable what happened to me, especially being someone who's a massive eater. Like Sarah knows me. I love food so much. I eat food all the time. Everyone knows this about me. Like, I just have a huge appetite. And for that to have affected me in such a way, and then seeing your documentary and thinking, oh God, I wish I had this. I wish I had seen this at that impressionable young age when I came out to Hollywood for the first time. It really changed my life. And then I carried that story and the doco with me as I walked the red carpet at the Oscars in the Prada gown that I had to have 1,000 fittings for because sample size did not cater to a postpartum body with big milky boobs and curves in all the different places. And I remember them having to go back and change it and bring the size up. And it just had such an impact on me. And that's when I looked Taryn up and was like, we need to be friends. Anything you need from me, I will help you. Let's get this message out there. And it's incredible. Now you've shifted into doing this for our children. And as a mother, Sarah and I are so grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful to you.
It's just so sad that we know as adults the trauma that we've carried for so many years. We know the cost to us of obsessing about our body or wanting her body or wanting to change our body, buying into the messages. And I think what I'm really most excited about in terms of where we're headed now for our kids and for the next generation is that we've lived that trauma for so long, and we will do anything as fierce, protective mamas and papas of our kids to prevent it from happening to them. So it's funny because in the US, you know, when I've been on the Doctors or Good Morning America or the Today Show, I often get the question asked of me, don't you find it overwhelming to create a global movement and lead that movement? I'm like, no, not at all. And I don't mean that in a cocky way. It's just that I've never seen anyone who's learned to embrace their body and regretted the decision to do so. So now it's just like, spread the news, embracing your body's good. So I just think it's a groundswell. And I think I've never felt the world more motivated than right now. And I think this film is coming at the right time because enough's enough. We've got to protect our kids.
I loved this part in your documentary. There's a part where there's a little boy who wants to wear dresses. He wants to wear like the Frozen dress, and then his dad dresses up in a Frozen dress as well with him. And it's, oh my gosh, it made me cry too. But partly because there have been moments like that in our own family. And there's been kids that have said something to my son because his favorite color is rainbow. And he will wear pink. And he talks to us about there, being somebody who's making fun of him because he loves pink. And so my husband went out and bought so many pink shirts and pink shorts. He started wearing pink as his character on NCIS LA. He's just made that a part of his life now that he just wears pink. And he talks about how much he loves pink and he loves rainbow, and his Apple Watch is a rainbow band. He did all of that to make our son feel supported. And it's just that he loved a color. It doesn't say anything about you guys. It's he loves this color, and this is just something about him. It's he's a bright little rainbow, and that's what he loves. And those moments resonated so much with our own family.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things, and this is what was really important for us in making the film, in that we showed and told as many stories as we could. And we saw representation on the screen, whether it's from Enzo or Jamila or Alex Noble. We share so much because isn't it just the most beautiful thing to be able to see yourself reflected back. And I think this is where so many of us have gone wrong. And that's why women, I think, fell into the trap with all the body image issues, because we were only presented with kind of a type of woman to be. It's changed over the years. You know, in the 50s, it was Marilyn Monroe. Then in the 80s, it was the supermodel. And then the 90s, it was the waif. And now it's a whole new thing. So there's all these like ways that we're meant to show up in the world, and like, too bad of you, Marilyn Monroe in the waif era. Like, sorry. But for kids, I think for them to know that however you arrive in the world, or whatever you become, it's okay. And I think the pillar here, and what we need to teach everybody, and it's got to filter down from adults to the kids, is kindness is king. And acceptance and inclusivity and diversity, and just letting people be who they are. Like, my dad always said to me, I don't care what people do. I don't care about if celebrities. I don't care about anything. As long as they're good to me and they're good to people, that's all that really matters. So true.
Yeah. There's this massive thing in our family. It's like our biggest rule, and just don't be a spirit popper. Don't pop spirits. And what we say about that is, like, you know, the kids who come up with this idea and they say this story, and maybe it doesn't totally make sense, but it's this really cool, interesting idea. Be a yes and person. Oh, that's so cool. And what else? So we've always said, like, be yes and. When someone comes out with their big, bold ideas and who they are, just encourage. Like, don't be a spirit popper. And Bodhi he's just started a new school here in Melbourne while I'm working here on my TV show. And he has found this little friend who doesn't have that many other friends in the school. And the two of them together are just on this mission to, like, not be popping spirits. And he talks to me about it all the time. He was like, yeah, and then this guy did this thing and it was kind of silly and some of the other kids laughed at them, but we were like, yeah, that is so awesome. And I was like, Bodhi, that is the person you want to be. That is so beautiful. And just keep leaning into that side of your little heart, because that is so divine and gorgeous. And yeah, gosh, we want so much more of that, like feeling okay with being different and individual and unique. And I loved being the quirky girl at school. I was this quirky young girl. They called me Socks and Sandals, and you know, I probably didn't have tons of friends, but I was so happy in who I was. And so it's really nice to know that you're just out there spreading this beautiful message, Taryn, and that we'll see generational change. If we're teaching this to our children today, then they're going to be the ones that grow into adults to then have their children learn these same lessons, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, and I think the thing there, you know, in terms of creating big change, we work with my creative team, and we also got Associate Professor Ivanka Pritchard from Victoria University, and Ivanka Pritchard from Flinders University. And we had all these academics and health professionals working side by side with the creative. And I have to say, it was the hardest project ever to make those two worlds work at times, because as a storyteller and as a director, you really want to take people on the journey and the story, and you want to set up the problem, and then you want to go out and find the answers. But we couldn't even set up the problem, because we couldn't show kids what the problem was, because it was going to do them damage.
Right.
That's why insert dogs. You know, I think in those really hard creative moments, you're like, I don't know what to do. We'll do dogs. We can talk about dogs' bodies. We can't talk about human bodies. And the film was so much richer for having these incredible dogs in the film. I have to say, the DOP, the cinematographer on the day, who I've worked with for a number of years, we are out on the beach with 5 dog wranglers, 20 dogs, 20 dog mummies, and it was chaos. And this cinematographer is the coolest guy I've ever worked with. And I went up to him at the day and I said, how are you going today? And he goes, it's the worst day of my life. Because it was just really hard to manage the dogs. But, I mean, I love the way that they show up in the film. We never judge dogs for being short, or for, you know, a sausage dog that it can't round up the sheep on the farm, or we accept them and we love them and we celebrate their differences. So we've got to learn from the dogs.
Yeah. I thought that was a really great description. I was wondering, you know, when we talk about and think about how the language that I think maybe we don't even understand that we use ourselves in our day-to-day lives, you know, as parents. Like if you're a mom or a dad and you're talking about, oh, I need to eat this way, or I need to work out or do this because I want to lose this or look like this, or even the way that I think, and I remember seeing the way that my mom would look in the mirror and the way that I look in the mirror when my kid is nearby. You know, I really try thoughtfully to not be like sucking in my stomach and like holding myself a certain way. And sometimes I think that I only do that because I know that it affected me to see other people doing that throughout my life. What are ways that, you know, parents can make that change at home? Like, what can they do? What language can they use? Or what are not that you've done anything wrong, mom and dad who's listening right now, just that I think that it's nice to have these things come up and then see where we can make a difference and a change.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Dr. Zali Yeager and I, we just wrote a book called Embrace Kids. And actually, when I approached her, we wanted a companion book to go out with the film because we knew the kids would watch the film, but the parents would go, I don't know what to do. So when I asked Zali to write this how-to, she's like, I'm not writing a parenting book. I've got too many on my bookshelf that actually have lots of shoulds and shame. I think there's very few. I've read your parenting book, guys, and it's on my shelf and I love it. So you guys got it right because it's honest and heartfelt. But there are a lot out there that make you feel bad. So I'm so glad that you said that. You only know what you know when you know it. So I think if we as parents can make the commitment to our kids to never say anything negative about our bodies or the bodies of others ever again is the first thing we can do, because we need to be the positive role models for our kids that they're not seeing a whole heap of in the world. So that means ditching the scales and the diets and you know, don't go for the run because you ate the chocolate cake. Go for the run because you want to feel at the endorphin rush and it's good for your mental health. Or go for the hike because you love nature. Just only show your kids how much you are grateful for your body and how much respect you have for it, no matter what's going on for it, no matter, you know, I mean, you cut your arm and it heals. You know, I'll say things like that to my kids all the time. Like, I cut myself with a knife the other day, and a few days later, I'm like, and this is an example of how awesome our body is. It just healed itself. Or the way that we digest, or our bodies are miraculous.
I always say that, you know, what I remember the smell of my Nana so much, her smell. But what I really remember about her is crawling up onto her lap, and she had these like beautiful breasts that I would snuggle up into, and she was so soft. And you know, she died when she was 93, and she had these gorgeous wrinkles on her hands, and she was just like the most divine angel. And I think when I had children, I realized that the way my children look at me and look at the hands that are on my body, and you know, the way they want to snuggle me and touch my face and curl up on my lap, like all they're seeing is their mum. These are the hands that hold them and nurture them and take care of them, and the breasts that feed them, and the bodies that carry them when they're sleepy, and all these wonderful things. And it just really starts with gratitude. Just so grateful that I'm even able to have children. I'm able-bodied. And even if I wasn't, just the fact that I have air in my lungs and I breathe when I wake up in the morning. Mark and I always say the first thing to be grateful for is that we woke up today, that we actually get to have this day. And you have a big theme of gratitude in both documentaries, actually, which is so beautiful, filling ourselves up with gratitude first and foremost, the very first moments of the day. And then that will help carry you through the rest of the hours of the busyness and all the craziness that happens as the day unfolds. So I love that that's another really big theme of your documentaries is just being grateful.
Me too. I feel like gratitude really puts you in such a positive place. And if you can wake up in the morning and just write down a few things that you're grateful for, or think about it, or if that's part of your meditation, and it just makes it feel so different if I do that rather than like grab my phone to start checking work emails, you know? that's such a different feeling.
I think it's really interesting, and something that we sort of talk about in the film is, and in the book and all things, is one of the pillars is self-compassion. One of the pillars is self-compassion, because we're so hard on ourselves, and if we could help our kids just to be kind to themselves in those moments where they might be comparing themselves to others, or they wish they had something that they didn't. Self-compassion really is key and a big part of the conversation to teach them that. And they need to see it from us. So they need to see us being kind to ourselves too.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot with Yours and Mama and with our book because, no one is more honest with you than your kids or than with kids in general. And I remember one of the first times that one of my kids was like, squishing my belly after I had a baby, right? And especially after this last baby, because they're just a little bit bigger. My daughter was like, wow, your skin is so stretchy and wrinkly. And like, I have DR, the diastasis recti, or however you say that. So there's a big separation. So my skin is, it kind of almost looks like bubbled right after I have a baby. It has like a lot of rippling on it. And my daughter would look at that and she's like, oh, what is that? And I would just always, instead of being like, oh, I know, I would be like, yeah, isn't that amazing? Like my body did so much work and it grew, all three of you, and you guys were big, I was like, Esme, you were 11 pounds when you were born. So think about like how much my belly had to grow to hold you inside. And even now to this day, like, if they mention anything about my stomach or like things that they notice and I'll always say, yeah, I know. Isn't that amazing? Like our bodies are so cool. But it has taken me a long time in my life, I think, to get to that place where I was like, oh yeah, why am I not having gratitude for my body and saying, yeah, good work, body. You're amazing. Like, look at what, like, just being healthy, but also like, look at what you did with growing these babies. Look at what you do when I run and I feel good. And like, all of these endorphins are released and I get a sweat and I feel so much energy, and like, that's cool too, and it took me a long time in my life to get to a place where I even thought about, refocusing and changing that language surrounding my own body. And now it just feels so good to say that because I believe it, which is
it's a reframe. I think, and that is something that everyone who's listening to this can do. Is my body hasn't changed. The body that I hated for more years that I've loved it. It has changed, but it's changed. The legs that I used to think, oh, cellulite, stretch marks, jiggly thighs. Oh my gosh, run 2 marathons. You legs are extraordinary. Or I always joke with audiences that I have the world's most friendliest arms. We call them tuck shop arms. I don't, but in Australia, it's a little bit kind of under here.
The tuck shop lady.
I'm like the world's friendliest arms because I wave to people and my arms are still waving well after I finish stop. But these arms allow me to like love and hug my kids. So the parts of
and
my
everyone
body
else.
Exactly.
You love and hug everyone. Yes, you are. COVID must have sucked for you.
It really sucks. But I am making up for lost time. There's a lot of hugging going on. But it's just a reframe. It's just a small tweak in the way you think about your body, because they're the parts of my body I used to hate. And now I can find nothing but love for them. And it's possible. I just want everyone to know it's possible to learn to embrace your body. You won't just watch a film and be like, no, okay, right, I'm going to choose to embrace now. You might choose to do it, but it will take ongoing work. But it's so worth it, because there's nothing more glorious than walking through life and being your own best friend and being in awe with your body.
Well, you know how you hear people say too, like, this is my problem area. Right? Like, oh, this is my problem. This is my problem area. And I did used to say that. I used to say like, oh, my stomach is my problem area. Like, I can't get abs or whatever. And Like I had gut issues for a long time, so I didn't know that I was celiac. And so I remember that I used to work out all the time and I'd be like, oh, my stomach, like I can't get it flat. And I look back at that person and I look back at photos and I'm like, what was I talking about? Like, that's insane. And then also, why was that a problem area? Like, I should have been more worried about what was going on inside of me instead of on the outside of me. Right. So it just, when I hear that, it triggers me now because I'm like, no, that's not a problem. You know, like you do it so you feel good. Like that's
exactly
so
right. And so Taryn, tell us, what does the future hold for you? What's in the pipeline? I know that you're shifting gears in some ways. Do you want to just fill us in on all your future plans? Because I'm sure you're going to have so many more fans after listening to this episode, because we just love you, and we know our audience will too.
Well, future plans. Some sleep's going to be awesome. No.
Yes.
I'm really focused at the moment on Embrace Kids, and we have just set up the embracehub.com. And it's a really big piece of the puzzle in terms of how we help our kids. It's a suite of free resources for parents, kids, teachers, sporting coaches. So I've worked with a team with Dr. Zali Yeager, a team of academics, health professionals and teachers. And we have created this website that anyone can go. It's all evidence-based. And a big focus is to get as many people there as possible, because everything that's there is scientifically backed, but it's presented in a way that's fun and kind of fun to consume, I guess. So there's the hub. I'm going to make Embrace Men. It's been bubbling away to finish off the trilogy. That's going to be a big one. It's
good.
I'm going to have to get in your guys' ears for this one, because I know a lot of men around the world that I've spoken to in terms of how they feel about their body image. And I just think it's the perfect way to finish off, all things embrace kids, embrace men, see your world. And then, no, not see your world, much more to do. I mean, I'd love to put myself out of a job. That's my aim, is to turn around the really alarming statistics about how people are feeling about their bodies, and in particular kids. I think I'm just going to throw, all of my energy into doing that for as long as I need to, just to leave the world a better place. And hopefully my grandkids are like, what's body image? What do you mean? Like, people didn't like their bodies? How ridiculous. Like, that
Absolutely.
For me is the KPI. That's where I need to get to.
Taryn, where can we find you if people want to follow you, if they want to watch the documentaries? Give us all that really cool information.
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Body Image Movement, or Twitter, or LinkedIn. Because this is a global audience as well. Embrace, given the first film that it was released in 2016, it's not in some parts of the world on Netflix. It is in Australia. The rest of the world, you had it, now it's gone. Can you just Google Embrace and find it however you can? But also
there's always a way.
There's always a way. And this one's a game changer, everybody. A bunch of academics did a global study on the impact of Embrace, and it was published in a medical journal. So for years I've been like, anecdotally, this film's great. It'll help you with your body image. Now we've got the science, which is so cool to have it published in a medical journal. It makes me feel like an academic, which I'm not. But so watch Embrace and follow along. Head to thebodyimagemovement.com, theembracehub.com for all the free resources. So
the Embrace Hub. So that's something where, like, teachers at school, or if, we want to encourage the schools that our kids go to, or that they can go there and they can pull information from you guys, right?
All free. And the research team put together all of the resources based on science. So we know what works. So the embracehub.com is just the number one place to go for those resources.
Very cool.
And I really hope that this documentary just becomes a part of the curriculum in schools globally. It's so important. It's so needed. And the way that we do that is we just share. We get it out there. Everyone listening, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your schools. This is such a must watch. And sit down with your kids and watch it. Mine loved it. Mine cried. Bodhi was so moved. It was unbelievable. So thank you so much for making such a special documentary and an incredibly profound and important movement.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And yes, to the schools. We're going to bring it to schools globally in 2023, and we're going to give it to schools as a free resource. So, I think it would be remiss of me not to say, because we do everything for free and we give it all away, we do through the charity arm raise money so we can do everything for free. So all those details are at the embracehub.com as well if you want to support the work that we do.
Amazing.
Great. And we'll put all of that in our show notes as well.
Yay, awesome, you guys. So lovely to connect again.
Taryn, you're amazing.
And Tez, thank you so much for everything. You know, it's really helpful when someone goes, I would share to my squillion, like you and Celeste have been, and Jamila have been killer. So love you.
You're the best. Love you, girl.
Speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.